Hello. For my project, I looked at the Dumfries Conservation Area, which is in Cambridge and is about 30 minutes southwest of the University of Waterloo. This is near the entrance that I used to access the protected area. You can see extensive garbage, which is a problem throughout the Dumfries Conservation Area. Percy Richard Hilburn bought 22.7 hectares of the land in 1916 and the remaining 50 hectares in 1966. A year later, he donated the land to the Ontario government to be preserved as wild area. In 1970, it was agreed that the Grand River Conservation Authority would take management control as a result of the Ontario government halting the development of provincial parks. In the photo from 1949, you can see the history of farming on this land. And in the photo from 1979, you can see the farming field was converted to a grass field with a road that still exists today. In the recent picture at the bottom from Google Maps, you can see that there is significantly more development surrounding this area. You can also see that there is more forests, most notably plantations. There is a railroad that passes right near Dumfries on the west, and the Grand River is also not far. Here you can see a map of Dumfries. Note the green patches, which are plantations. This map shows primary and secondary trails. You can see I've numbered the sites I sampled 1 through 5. At each of the 5 sites, I created a 1 by 1 meter quadrat and then identified and estimated the percent coverage for each species in the quadrat. I also took note of other species outside the quadrat to get a more complete sense of the plant communities. I also looked at the plantations around these 5 sites. Here you can see the results for quadrant 1. This site was closest to the fields in the north. There was a good mix of species, with goldenrods being quite dominant around this quadrat. Non-native species of important note were wild carrot and European buckthorn. Here is an informal trail near the first quadrat site. You can see it leads to an interesting paved area and a metal hatch on the ground. These are visible from the main trail and I believe encourage the use of informal trails by enticing people to explore. Here you can see the results for quadrant 2. Non-native species of important note around this quadrat were European buckthorn and garlic mustard. Here you can see where the trail crosses over the river just after quadrant site 2, as well as a plantation in the background. This first plantation area I looked at consists of eastern white pine and Norway spruce. The western edge of this plantation had early successional popular trees growing, and along the river there were other deciduous trees such as maples. The photo on the left shows the leaf litter right along the river bank under deciduous trees, and the photo on the right shows the boundary between these and the plantation. Note how quickly the leaf litter ends. I think this was an interesting result of the plantations and surely has a great impact on the soil and soil formation. The second plantation consisted of eastern white and red pines. This plantation had the most understory growth, dominantly consisting of European buckthorn. The increased understory growth may be attributed to the increased light penetrating this plantation due to dead trees as pictured on the left. On the right, you can see some trees which were planted between this plantation and the first one and were likely part of a restoration project. Here you can see the results for quadrant 3, along with 2 plants I was unable to identify. Here you can see the results for quadrant 4. I've also included a photo to show what the scrubland between the 2 major plantations I looked at looks like. Between quadrant 4 and the next plantation was the area worst affected by the invasive European buckthorn. This plantation was the darkest, as you can see from the picture on the left. The 2 pictures on the right show what seems to be a thinning effort. There is a strip through the plantation that is wider and has a few deciduous species growing. There was also some buckthorn growing in this plantation, which I believe poses a management challenge across the Dumfries area. Here you can see the results of quadrant 5. This quadrat was on the other end of the last plantation and only contained buckthorn. Going past this quadrat were deciduous tree species such as maples and oaks. Here are some more photos that show the garbage issues in this protected area. It is important to note that because of the time of year that I identified plants, it is likely that I missed some due to them being dead for this season. However, invasive European buckthorn poses a problem to the ecological integrity of Dumfries, especially considering the future of the plantations. The proximity of European buckthorn to the plantations, and even within some of the plantations, makes me worried that this invasive species will be able to easily dominate the plantations as they age. The diversity of tree species makes me hopeful for the future of this protected area. However, management of the plantations is needed to help them transition into more diverse forests. Restoration efforts could plant shade-tolerant native species in plantations to help develop a more natural, wild understory. Informal trails and litter continue to be a problem for Dumfries, and this may be alleviated by implementing signage and also on-site garbage or recycling.